Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried in her Sydney kitchen cupboard, Dandelion Queen scrawled in faded gold. 50 years old, sand still clinging to her sandals from last night's beach barbecue with fam, she snorted. Menopause had turned her into a sweaty, sleepless gremlin, but this relic. A relic from that chaotic herbal tea workshop she ditched halfway, convinced resilience meant white-knuckling through hot flashes. Now, staring dandelions poking through cracked pavement outside, something prickled. Not Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried in her cupboard, its faded sunflower pattern a relic from backyard BBQs when her fam still fit around one table. Now, empty nests left echoes louder than her hot flashes. Menopause wasn't just sweat-soaked sheets, it was a sneaky tide eroding her edges, making her feel like a sandcastle noon. She'd stumbled into that herbal tea workshop after tripping over a yoga mat Grace had left with her metabolism. Between sips of dandelion brew, bitterness faded to buttery warmth, like sunrise on Bondi Beach. Each mug became a tiny rebellion against lie that aging meant shrinking. That chipped cup. Turned out it held more than memories, it carried roots. By week 3, Susan laughed her own reflection mid-flush, a wry salute to furnace in her bones. Dandelion tea didn't fix everything, but it taught her this: some storms aren't meant to be weathered, they are meant to dance in, barefoot, while kettle sings. Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried beneath mismatched teaspoons, its faded sunflower design whispering of backyard BBQs and half-forgotten laughter. 50 years young, she'd spent decades serving others, kids, colleagues, even that persnickety tabby next door, but now, her own body had staged a mutiny. Hot flashes arrived like uninvited guests, and sleepless nights left her frayed as mugs handle. One sweltering Sydney afternoon, she ducked into a dimly lit apothecary to escape heat. A chalkboard advertised herbal allies, brew your balance, and before she could second-guess, Creator found herself wedged between a lavender-scented grandma and a millennial with neon hair. Instructor, a no-nonsense woman whose silver braids defied gravity, handed out dandelion roots with a wink. Nature's little rebels, she said. Turns bitterness into power. Susan's first brew tasted like dirt with commitment issues. But by her third attempt, after accidentally flooding her kitchen counter, she noticed something. Mornings carried less fog. Evenings held fewer fires. That chipped mug became her anchor, its cracks a reminder that broken things still hold warmth. Word got around her fam. Soon, neighborhood women clustered on her porch, swapping stories over steaming cups. They laughed about road chin hairs and debated whether hot flashes were just internal beach BBQs. Woman never became a guru, she still tripped over yoga mats, but in teaching others to steep their own resilience, she found a flavor stronger than relief, purpose. Mug stayed chipped. Susan didn't mind. Some stains, like some lessons, were worth keeping. Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried beneath mismatched lids, its faded sunflower pattern a relic of backyard BBQs and half-forgotten Sunday brunches. 50 years old and suddenly sweating through her blouse like a teenager, she scoffed irony. Menopause had turned her into a walking cliché, minus graceful acceptance. Sydney's autumn sun glared through window, mocking her flimsy resolve. That mug became her battleground. Every morning, she filled it with dandelion tea, bitter and earthy, a far cry from her usual flat white. First sip tasted like regret. Second sip, defiance. By week 3, hot flashes dulled to embers and her fam stopped side-eyeing her mid-conversation meltdowns. Progress, not perfection. Curiosity led her to a herbal tea workshop in a cramped Surrey Hills storefront where a no-nonsense woman with silver braids schooled her on roots and rituals. Susan took notes like her sanity depended on it, maybe it did. She learned dandelion wasn't just a weed but a stubborn survivor, punching through concrete, thriving where it shouldn't. Sound familiar? Back home, she planted seeds in cracked pavement out back, a middle finger to doubt. Some days, tea didn't fix rage or sleepless nights, but it anchored her. That mug, chipped as it was, held more than leaves, it held proof she could adapt without disappearing. By summer, Susan hosted her own barbecue, serving dandelion-infused cocktails with a dry smirk. Menopause martinis, she announced, toasting sunburned friends who didn't flinch her honesty. Waves crashed in distance, a rhythm as steady as her newfound rhythm, imperfect, unapologetic, alive. Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried in her cupboard, its faded sunflower pattern mocking her midlife chaos. Hot flashes had turned her into a walking furnace, and Sydney's summer wasn't helping. But that mug, her grandma's, whispered rebellion. She'd read about dandelion tea easing menopause rage, and after 3 sleepless nights, desperation outweighed pride. She marched into a hipster herbalist's den, where a 20-something with a man bun smirked her request. Menopause? Good luck with that. Susan's grip tightened on mug. Challenge accepted. 2 weeks later, she hijacked her book club's beach barbecue, setting up an impromptu menopause tea station beside Snag's on Grill. Skeptical side-eyes flew as she poured golden brew from Grandma's mug. 1 sip, she dared, flashing a grin. Worst case, you'll just pee a lot. Nervous laughter crackled like flames. Then, silence. A yoga instructor, notorious for eye-rolling woo-woo remedies, took a gulp. Froze. Holy hell. My joints don't feel like a rusty gate. Murmurs swelled. Phones came out. Someone live-streamed Susan's makeshift workshop as she explained Dandelion's magic between flipping prawns. By sundown, Dandelion Menopause Mafia was trending. Her inbox blew up, women from Perth to Phoenix begging for tips. A local cafe slid into her DMS, won a collab on a hot flash cool-down blend. Susan clutched mug, laughing. 50 years old, and she'd accidentally become a menopause mercenary. As waves crashed behind her, she watched strangers bond over steaming cups, their laughter drowning out years of whispered shame. That chipped mug wasn't just holding tea anymore, it held a revolution. And Susan? She finally belonged here. Susan's fingers brushed against a chipped mug buried in her cupboard, its faded sunflower design a relic of chaotic brunches past. 50 and freshly reacquainted with hot flashes, she'd scoffed dandelion tea, until that first sip unknotted her shoulders like a beach breeze. Sydney's herbalist called it weed wisdom. Susan called it salvation. Soon, her kitchen became a haven for women clutching mugs like lifelines. She hosted workshops between sizzling Snag's Bondi BBQs, teaching fam to roast roots like pros. Odd habit. She hummed 80s power ballads while stirring pots. Tina Turner fueled her turmeric blends. That chipped mug, now a symbol of grit, sat front row as she guided Silver Street skeptics through steeping rituals. Laughter tangled with steam, stories rose like chamomile scent. Months later, Susan spotted her mug in a student's Instagram post, dandy squad goals with 50 tagged friends. Menopause hadn't dimmed her, it handed her a megaphone. Community brewed in her kettle, creativity in every cup. Your turn, legend. Steep rebellion. Sip joy. Raise that mug, your tribe's waiting.